So today we're for Nam Academy. We're going to do another sort of map item, meaning if you understand this point, you get to where you go a lot faster. So the principle is it's kind of connected. So it is nurture each other often. Nurture each other often, and it goes, so aaps vich pyar bolo. It goes along with authentic, positive to negative feedback, 6:1. Feedback ratio is 6:1 or more. That comes from sports literature. They find that teams that have more than 6 positive for 1 negative, they perform better. So ਜਿਹੜੇ ਖਿਡਾਰੀ ਉਹ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵਧੀਆ ਜੇ 6 ਚੰਗੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਬੋਲੀਆਂ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਇੱਥੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਠੀਕ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ. So 6 positive to 1 negative is a good ratio for communication. So that's going to be our topic today. And so why is this true? This is true. This is true because we'll talk about both why this is true and then why it doesn't happen. So, opposite what most parents think, here's what most parents think. If I give you too much love, you'll become a sissy. You'll become spoiled. Je main bala pyar vikhonda, tusi kadda nahi hona, takda nahi hona. You won't become strong. You only become strong when you are given the push. That's a very common thought for parents. Both parents soch there. In Punjabi, there's a saying. It's the single biggest reason for alcoholism worldwide. Pyo diyan galan kyo diyan nalan. So this is a saying that means the swear words of a father should be heard as like sweet butter. And the intention is fair. I do trauma therapy for a living. I find the vast majority of parents love their kids. A few don't, and those are very exceptionally difficult cases. But the vast majority, sab to zyada parents asl ch pyar karde hain. So they have love in their hearts for the child. So the thing about love is there's 2 parts. So if it's a person, I'm gonna just draw someone, and they're kind of looking, smiling, and they're saying something, and in their mind, love. They're saying love. They mean love. Love is in their heart. but what they're giving is negative feedback. And then the little child is hearing negative feedback, and in his mind or her mind, it's I'm not good. That's all it is. The parent thinks what they're saying is love because they're saying it from a place of worry. Oh, fikr kar de jawak vaste. If he keeps doing this, he's going to get into problems as a married man or woman. Won't be able to work, won't be able to do things. And it comes from a place of caring. The way of showing it is negative feedback. And if this parent and this child, if their minds were linked, it would work out. But they're not linked that way. So you get a situation where parent to child is lost in the translation. Pyo ek cheez kehanda, bachche nu kuch hor sunda. And so the vast majority of people with addiction, mental health problems, they're not 6-to-1. They're oftentimes 1-to-100. Meaning 1 positive thing for 100 things not good. And then the parent thinks, oh, no, no, pata hai, they know what I mean. But actually, this child's brain, the reason it doesn't work is this child's brain is too small. The brain, it develops emotionally first. From 0 to 11, it's emotional development. That comes first. Wo sab to pehla hunda, emotionally. Right brain kind of thing. That developed first, and then after that develops the intellect. Meaning the smart, logic. So today I speak to you, to your intellectual brain, to tell you that no matter what your parents said, no matter what you experienced, the reality is that they didn't mean it that way. The vast majority, not all, but the vast majority. Parents sochde hai pyar, jawak nu sunda nahi. Because his or her brain can't handle that. In the early years of life, especially 0 to 4, the more it's needed. So, jadon aadmi kafi young hunda, bahut zyada pyar chahida. Not 6-to-1, but like 1,000-to-1. At a very young age. What are you going to tell a baby? You're going to yell at a baby for pooping their pants? Of course not. Why would you? They can't understand what they're doing. Why would you yell at them? The ਬੱਚੇ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਝਿੜਕਣਾ ਨਹੀਂ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬੇਬੀ ਜਿਹਾ ਥੋੜਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ. It's okay. And their brains need this. This is called safety. Safety comes from the positive, loving message that is said at the level of the child. Safety comes from the positive, loving message that is said at the level of the child. So, 4-year-old, what can they understand? ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੀ ਸਮਝ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬੱਚਾ ਹੈਗਾ, ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਦੇ level ਤੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਸਮਝਾਉਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ, if we're teaching a kid high level, higher than their level, they won't hear it. So, a 4-year-old, you can't give them, oh, sorry, I meant to tell you that actually your behavior has pros and cons to it. 4-year-old's going to say, huh? What? They're not going to hear it. They're also not going to read your mind. A 4-year-old, 4 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਦਾ ਬੱਚਾ, you play with them. That's love. Love is when we play with them. And so that language that they have at that age is how they mature. And so this happens a lot when the parents, their attention is somewhere else, on survival. So immigrants are oftentimes, they don't have the time for their children. Especially first-generation immigrants, impoverished. So, ਜਿਹੜੇ immigrate ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, working 2 jobs. ਜੇ ਘਰੇ ਕੋਈ ਪੈਸੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ, you have to work 2 jobs. It's really hard to be patient enough to do this. It's very difficult. And so the child will have the damage. They will have needs that are not met. So when this happens, this results in unmet needs. ਇਹਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈਗਾ unmet needs, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੋਣਾ ਸੀ ਹੋਇਆ ਨਹੀਂ, gap ਪੈ ਗਿਆ. There's a gap, there's a hole. And I'll just move this over here. And we'll talk about what that means. So, when there's a gap, we'll call it the gap of unmet needs. It means that the emotional is underdeveloped and the intellect is overdeveloped. Why does that happen? Because if you hear all your life you're not good enough, ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੀ ਉਮਰ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਆ, so ਬਚਪਨ ਤੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੁਣਿਆ ਮੈਂ ਨਾ ਚੰਗਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, then you get triggered. Anyone who says anything like that, it bothers you. So then you develop your intellect. So ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ intelligence ਹੈਗਾ ਸੀ ਉਹ develop ਕਰ ਦਿਮਾਗ ਤੁਸੀਂ apply ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, and you avoid any situation that make you feel bad. So, for example, it's well known that a bully, if you stand up to a bully, they pop. Bully, what does bully do? Bully ki karda? Oh, sare nu vakhawa karda hai. I'm big, I'm strong, don't mess with me. Probably walks like this, right? But if someone stands up to a bully, they don't have much fight. You stand up and you pop the balloon, and all of a sudden there's weakness inside. They fall apart, they run away, they cry, they do something. So this imbalance, it looks many different ways depending on what this intellectual defense mechanism layers. So we oftentimes talk about core program. There's usually layers of intellect, layers of defense around the emotional disturbance, you know, one of which might be drinking, one of which might be just being a workaholic, one of which might be, you might know people in your life that are just super sensitive, that just lash out if you say anything. That's a defense mechanism. So when this imbalance happens, underdevelopment of the emotional, overdevelopment of the intellectual, you get defense mechanisms that come. This is the result of a gap of unmet needs. And these unmet needs are typically between 0 and 11. The earlier the need, the more severe the problem. So, for example, sab to pehla, if a child between 0 and 4 is removed from custody of his mother, put with foster parents, जो बचपन जो खोया गया किसी और दे नाल raise होया, he will have a lot of unmet needs, especially if that new parent is not loving. And so he'll have to develop a lot of these defenses. And these defenses are very hard to maintain. Too many defenses create stress, toxic stress. They conflict with each other. These same defenses, you want to love someone, but they just pull away. And we'll talk about why that is. So the gap of unmet needs is kind of like a big tank. So we'll call this the love tank. If a child, and this is the magical part, if the child gets a lot of love, some memories are bigger than others, some are smaller, but if they get a lot of love, the more full this is, the more stable that child is. And this is simply experiences of good appreciation, of being seen, of being valued, of being given eye contact, of kisi di gal sunni dhyan naal, being listened to, being told, you know what, 4-year-old, you're crying, but you matter. I'm going to sit down with you and I'm going to give you a hug. These kinds of experiences fill this tank. Being fed. Big and small, the more full this tank is, the better the health is. and the less need for all these defenses. If you know you're enough, who cares if that guy says you're not good enough? That's his opinion. ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਚੰਗੇ ਹੈ, ਅੰਦਰੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ, ਮਾੜੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ, ਫਿਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਕੇਅਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਹੋਰ ਦਾ. You won't care. It won't bother you. Because your core is enough. It's only if it's not enough and it's the truth of what you feel is the truth, then anyone saying that to you, whether they have a good reason for saying it or not, will bother you and trigger toxic stress. So here is the interesting thing. Let's say you're a half-tank guy. You got some love. Most people are half-tank people, men and women. They've gotten some love. They have not always heard the loving intention. So what happens is we just need to finish the job. We all have little child parts inside of us looking for that love. If you get that love today, so this is all as a child, but there's a lot of unmet. If you start getting that love today, it doesn't matter. If it was a year ago, or 5, 20, 30, 40, 60 years ago, or today, neurobiologically, love language today began to give you that strength. If you can't get love from your parents, like let's say they're still mean and messed up, but you develop a relationship with your higher power, Rab naal, mummy daddy, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਪਿਆਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਕਰਦੇ, ਪਰ ਹੁਣ ਕੋਈ ਰੱਬ ਨਾਲ, ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਲ, ਕੋਈ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨਾਲ, you can make a relationship of love, then that has the effect of filling the tank. We do this sometimes in trauma therapy, we help people access imagery that helps them feel loved, and it actually works. Because there's love all around us. We just have to access it. And so, why we say 6-1 is because it just fills the tank. Jada asi 6 changi, 1 negative ਕਹਿੰਦੇ हैं, because it fills the tank. Little bits, all the time, it makes you stronger. And as you get stronger, your defenses, they get more tight. They become more appropriate. Your emotions stabilize out and you can become emotionally stable and intellectually sound. This is the reality. When we start meeting these unmet needs, the more we meet, the more positive we hear. जिन्ना कसी ज़्यादा positive कहते हैं दूजियां नू, जिन्ना कसी ज़्यादा दिल तो, I'm talking authentic positive. I'm not talking fake. Oh yeah, I like your shoes. Because communication is 99% nonverbal. If you don't like their shoes and you tell them they like your shoes, at some level they know you're lying. And they just won't trust you. Or they'll say, oh, okay. They won't know, but it won't feel good. So don't do that. Be authentic. If you don't have enough positives to share, wait until you do. Especially if you have children. If you have children, really think about this. Doesn't matter how you've lived your life, you can start fresh now. And if you do, you will absolutely correct that neurobiology, and you will shorten your children's life journey through mental health, and they'll have a journey. No, you can't change that. They will journey. You cannot take their journey away from them. ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਗਏ ਦਿਮਾਗ ਦੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਇੰਨੀ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਐਡਿਕਸ਼ਨ ਮੈਂਟਲ ਹੈਲਥ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਥੈਰੇਪੀ ਜਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਹੋਰ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਣਾ but the difference is they might start therapy 20-30 years sooner. Imagine if you were taught all these things 20-30 years ago. How easy that. Imagine if you were taught these things by your parents. Our first teachers are our parents. A parent can teach us things in a way no one else can. ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮੰਮੀ ਡੈਡੀ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਿਖਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕਰਨ ਨਾਲ. They teach us with what they do. A parent looking after themselves, filling their tank, changing the communication pattern at home, no matter what they're used to at least 6-1, will allow that child to go and see a doctor and say, you know what, it's okay to talk about mental health. It's okay to talk about love. It's not overwhelming. And so, this is why we say nurture each other often when you speak. Mittha bolo. Us karke assi kehne hain mittha bolo. Because you're filling someone's tank. And when you speak sweet with them, they speak sweet with you, you accelerate. Imagine having good things coming in your tank from all the directions, how fast it would fill. As opposed to just one. Kinna ksheti aadmi khushiyan shnal, jan lady khushiyan shnal paruga. That is what recovery is. That is what you can create in your family. Either your family of origin or your family of being. Jehde of the family hai, ja of the recovery family. Doesn't matter. It usually starts outside because family have a hard time doing this. But then you can bring it to them. And that's what helps them heal. Not today, not tomorrow, but their journey will, if it was going to be 30 years, it'll come to 5 years. Drastic difference. Just that one knowing that you're on a journey will allow your children. So people say all the time, oh, we should heal the kids, look after the kids. I say look after the parents. No better therapist for the child than the parents. So I like looking after people who are in jail. I like looking after adults who have really, really messed up lives. Because I know if they see recovery and they do recovery, everyone's journey gets faster. In the most powerful way. And of course you want to look after the kids, but no one can look after them as good as their parents. So, this is the basis of nurture each other often. And this is why we say 6-1. At least. And don't think it's going to come easy to you. You will do as your parents did. If your parents communicated you in this way, negative all the time, that's going to be what you want to do. And if they thought they were loving, that's what you're going to do. You're programmed. So you have to connect to yourself. You have to hang out with positive people. And slowly change your pattern. So we talk a lot about NAM, therapeutic communities of being. You have to change your peer group. You have to change to these people who are going to start talking to you in these good ratios that are filling the gap. And last thing that I'll just share is we got to go slow with this. Lots of people avoid love. They avoid AA meetings, they avoid places, because it just feels so easy. Just, I love you. It just has a because saying I love you to someone in them reminds them of all the years they didn't get that. It reminds them that it was there and it could be taken away. So you got to go slow. You got to nurture gently. Maybe I love you is too strong. I like you. You can take that in a little easier. And working it up. It's all good. But this is why some people avoid recovery, is because there's too much touchy-feely stuff. But that's the journey. And you got to go do it. There's no recovery without learning to hear those words. I love you, you're a good guy, you're a good lady. There's no journey without compassion for self or for others. So that's why we connect to self and we connect to others. To become practiced in that compassion. And then we start using the words. So today is about why we want to use the words to cultivate a therapeutic community of being. And so I think that that is a good place for us to stop this particular lecture, and then we'll go to the question and answers. So, great question just came up. If I have, if the question is why is it that underdevelopment of emotions results in overdevelopment of the intellect and the defenses? Emotions je asi andron sada emotions and asi mature nahi hege andron asi kyon vakava zyada karde hain. And so the answer is if you imagine just having like some of like your a rip in your shirt. I remember this happened to me. I didn't have a button when I was. I went to a wedding. I didn't have a button, and I'd forgot my tie. This was in a different province, so I didn't realize until the day before the wedding. That whole wedding, one or two people sort of came up to me and they said, "Oh, where's your button? Would you like me to button that shirt up?" And then I didn't have a button. It actually made me feel a little subconscious. So then what I started to do is I started to just kind of, do something to cover it up. That's an intellectual defense mechanism. Nothing to see here. It's all good. I would talk to people. I would direct their attention elsewhere. Oh yeah, what's over there? Yeah, anything to take attention away from the defect, which is no button. As opposed to, I forgot my button. It's okay. It happens. We're human. Isn't that so much easier? But I have to be okay with that. This no button, it can't mean that I'm a bad person. I don't have my button, therefore I'm unprepared, therefore I'm a piece of crap. My dad always told me that. Yeah, you're going to be covering this up real good because you don't want to hear that from people. But if you're good with all that, who cares? No button is no button. Good question.